Holy moly. Thank you, guys. I love that. Okay, so as you can take in all of the decorations, and welcome to Oz. I think I'm popping the Yellow Brick Road. So I wanted to share something with you really quick. We have there's a class that is going on, and I want to share two things with you about it. Number one, somehow we got on the topic of Alexa. Do you guys know Alexa? Okay. So you talk to her, and so someone said, Nicole, you should ask Alexa to tell you a joke, and then tell it on Sunday. And so I said to Alexa, tell me a joke about the Wizard of Oz. And so these are really cheesy, okay? But bear with me. Here's the jokes. Okay, so the first one she told me said, how do older people get around in Oz? With munchkins. I know. I'm only laughing because of the sound you made. Okay, so here's the second one. Okay. How did Dorothy feel about the tornado? She was blown away. That's so stupid. I don't know who comes up with these, but it's funny. And the other thing that I experienced was a really incredible aha in that class, and I'll share that with you at the end of this experience this morning. But first, I want to share with you Reverend Dr. Christian Sorensen down at Seaside Center for Spiritual Living. He is a mentor of mine. I love him. He's one of the greatest CSL ministers I've ever known. And he said, Nicole, you got to read this book, The Wizard of Oz. It's by Gene Houston. And I said, okay. So I read it, and I was just astonished. It was just amazing to me to see the metaphors and the mythology of this journey that Dorothy takes through Oz. And what I realized is that Gene Houston, she studied under Joseph Campbell, who's he created the 8 stages of the hero's journey. And we're going to look at that this morning. But she also helped pioneer the human potential movement. And I just thought, I can't even explain it. It was so amazing to read it and to feel into that. Because mythology has been a part of the human experience. Gene Houston says that mythology is encoded on human DNA. Because it is a part of everything that we experience and who we are. From the Greek gods and all the interesting stories that are told about them, we know that is mythology, right? But there is truth. There is human truth in that. And these stories have been created to represent the true human experience. It's kind of like Jesus, he taught in parables, right? Because sometimes we can heart experience something when it's in a story. And so today, I want to weave together the ideas and the phases of the heroine's journey, right? Along with Dorothy's journey and our journey. Because I believe that every one of us in our own way, actually I know that every one of us experiences this journey, this hero's journey, because it's the evolution of consciousness, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now if we didn't have the desire to awaken, right? Yes? I mean, if you want to live in Dust Bowl, Kansas in gray, that's fine, but I don't think so. I don't think this would be the place that you would stop at. So here's how it begins. The hero's journey begins with separation and a call. So we've got separation and a call. And this is when Dorothy, how many of you have seen The Wizard of Oz? Okay. I figured out that some people haven't because I think my mom told me that she had never seen it. So I said, okay, that's okay. Or read the books. Well, something that's really interesting, let me backtrack, is that the author of the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, he wrote the book in 1899 and published it in 1900. And this was like one of the first mythological stories that was ever told where the protagonist was a woman. And it was because his wife and her mother were avid members of the suffrage movement. They were like real advocates for this, and so he was an advocate for them. And so in this story, it's the heroine's story instead of the hero's. But we're all Dorothy here, okay? So all month, we're Dorothy, and this is the point of view we're going through because we're on this journey together. So, like I said, we start with this separation and the call. And like Dorothy runs away, and she wants to get the attention of Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, but they're counting their chickens, and they just can't be bothered with her, right? They're just living in this material world, and they can't be bothered with paying any attention. So she runs away, and she feels this call for something more, and she sings "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," way up high. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. And that's that intuition, that spirit within us that's calling us for something more. That maybe there's more to life than what we're just seeing around us. Maybe there's a greater experience trying to come through us. But what happens when we feel called? What happens when we know, when our heart and our soul and our body just knows that this next experience just has to be? Well, sometimes we just turn and run away, right? Have you ever turned and ran away from your call? Said, oh, maybe when my kids are grown up, or oh, maybe when I have more money, or oh, whatever excuse we want to make, right? We try to ignore that call. And so here's the phase that we move into. We move into the problems. So then the problems come into play. And for Dorothy, her problems were the tornado, this chaos that ensued. She felt the call, and she was running around, and then this tornado came, and it created havoc. It wreaked havoc in her life. And she saw all the negative and all the positive and all the things that she was holding in her mind. And how many of us, instead of following our heart and listening to the call, had to get, like Peggy Bassett used to say, had to get hit over the head with that cosmic 2x4 before we listened, you know? Sometimes it takes something really, really big to knock us on our knees, or to push us in a door, or to reach out, right? And once we do, we are brought to a threshold. So the tornado spins, life is in chaos, and what comes out of chaos? Order. Out of chaos comes order. And in order, this symbolic door opens, and Dorothy stands on the threshold. And in one life, it's in gray or black and white, depending on if you're reading the book or watching the movie. And on the other side of the threshold, it's in bright, brilliant color. And in one side of our life, we're living in this unconscious state, in this deciding that the world is affecting us, that we're not in control of anything, that people are hurting us and that things are happening to us. But when we take that step over that threshold and into that brilliant light of choosing to be conscious, of choosing to be aware, of choosing to awaken, the light is upon us. And the best thing about crossing that threshold is that there will always be guardians there to have their hand out to help you over. And for Dorothy, it was Glenda at first, giving her the gift. And then it was the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion. We always have allies. We always have guardians who are there to support us and to hold us in a safe space while we awaken. Because just because we've crossed over that threshold does not mean that everything is all fine and dandy and happy and, And in fact, the next phase of that becomes the what is it? The challenges. The challenges, yes, the poppies. Thank you for reminding me of that. That's one of the challenges, right? So we've experienced this threshold. We've crossed it. We decided, you know what? I'm done sleeping my way through life. I'm done living my life in black and white or in gray, living half alive. Now I'm going to truly live. And we want to truly live, and so we come across all of these problems, of these challenges, because all of a sudden we've become aware that, wait a second, we have a part to play in how we feel and how we think and how life is showing up for us, right? And like Dorothy, maybe we felt like we've gotten apples thrown at us or flying monkeys trying to take us away somewhere, or have you ever felt like that? Like, I'm trying. And it hurts, and it's painful, and we feel like there's something wrong with us or we're not doing it right. And that's not at all the truth. The truth is that it's part of the journey. And then, as if the problems and the challenges weren't enough, there comes a point when this phase of the heroine's journey that's called the abyss. So there's problems, there's apples thrown at us, and then we feel so dark and so unworthy or so lost that it becomes like that dark night of the soul. For Dorothy, she's stuck in that evil witch's castle and doesn't know how she's ever going to get out of it. Imprisoned. Have you ever felt imprisoned because of yourself, within your own self? Like you try and you try and you try, and one thing after another feels like it's just knocking you down or slapping you in the face. But from that ground, I know for me, it's been like, I literally fall on my knees. I literally am like, I can't do this anymore. And so for me, it is like a surrendering. It's like a getting my freaking big bloatedness, right? What does Emerson say? Get their bloated nothingness out of the way and let Spirit do its work. And so we get ourselves out of the way, and that's when transformation occurs. That's when transformation occurs. For Dorothy, it was when they pulled open the curtain and realized that this big, powerful Wizard of Oz was just a man. And this is when we find out, this part of our transformation, this part of our journey is when we realize, oh my gosh, the power was within me the whole time. I didn't need to go find it in that guru. I didn't need to go read all those self-help books. Not that those aren't great and wonderful and supportive, but the Spirit, the divine, is within us all the time, at every moment. And it's when we get ourselves out of our own way that we really start to know it and feel it. And once the transformation occurs, the gift has been received, and we make our way home. Home to that expanded consciousness, that atonement, that at one, atonement means to be at one. It means to be at one with the highest. The highest is the highest expression of life that we could experience in this human form right now. We talked about this the other day. Our job in life is to live, is to exist. It's to exist. And so I thought about this, and when I read the book, and I thought, is this something to even share? Like, was this just a gift for me that he offered and asked me to read it, or was it something more? And what I realized in sitting and being quiet and contemplating is that it is something more. And the something more is that I want to remind us, as many of you remind me all the time throughout the week, that number one, we were born. We are embodiments of divinity, and we were born to live, to really live, to cross that threshold into that bright, brilliant light, as scary and terrifying as it might be, because we've never been there before and we don't even know who these people are around us or how to find our way. To live. And the second reason why I think it's so important to be reminded of this hero's journey is because it is sometimes harsh and painful, and it hurts, and it's brutal. And we think, oh, if we're doing it right, we shouldn't feel any pain. If we're doing it right, we shouldn't suffer. Well, that is a delusion, okay? Okay? Because there are always going to be points in our existence where we are ready and spirit has been called within us to grow. And just like when we build muscle, we have to tear it to build it. And in that same way, when we grow, it can be painful before it becomes solid. And so it's okay. And I want to tell you that you're not doing anything wrong. If you're hurting, if you're depressed, if you're having physical ailments, we are biological beings, and we are going to, dissolve at some point. We're going to break down. But there's a spirit within us, the divine embodiment. We are the divine embodiment. And so for whatever breath we have left, we must live. We must live. And the third reason is because we were not meant to live alone. And how many times do I wish I could remind myself that? We were not meant to do this thing called life alone. How many of us ever feel lonely or alone? Or like, okay, so I'm not alone. The deal is we weren't meant to do that. That's why there's so many people on this earth. And if each of us is an embodiment of the divine, a center of consciousness in the mind of God, individualized, then that means every single one of us has a gift. Even if we can't see it, even if we can't feel it, someone else can. And that's why we need to be together, and that's why we need to support each other, and that's why we need to ask for help when we're hurting, is because someone else might have that gift, that soothing balm for your wound. We weren't meant to do this thing called life alone. A great example, can I share this too? One day, Haley and I were kind of having a bad day. We were kind of feeling off, like our energy was kind of just off. And then we got to take a drive with Sue right here, and her light was so bright, and her smile and her energy about her was so powerfully positive. That's all I can say, that she transformed the car. She transformed the energy and the consciousness in that place. That's how powerful it is. That's how powerful of a gift that we have. And she didn't even know it. She didn't even know it. I had to tell her a few days later. Thank you for supporting us, because we don't always know what our gifts are. But they do heal and support others. And so just to bring it back to that aha that I had in class, I believe that there is this epidemic in the world today where we believe that we're not enough, where we believe that we're not smart enough, that we're not capable enough, that we're not intelligent enough, that we don't have the skills. And isn't it interesting that the first person that Dorothy meets on her journey through Oz is a scarecrow who so desires to have a brain, who so desires to be enough. And what do we know about the scarecrow? In the end, he was the sharpest tack in the box, right? And in that same way, I believe that we too are enough. And if we can't see it, ask someone to see it for us. Ask someone, can you please tell me the light that you see in me, because I'm not feeling it or seeing it right now. I know it's vulnerable. I know it can be hard. That's what we have practitioners for. I mean, that's what we have each other for. That's why we're a community. And so I just want to invite you on this journey with me to take yourself right where you are and come with me on this adventure through Oz this month and this adventure through our life together, growing as a family, as a spiritual community, as one in the mind of God. Thank you all for sharing your time with me.